What's up, boys? It's Nick from Team Table 501 here. I'm the king of the scrubs, and today I'm going to be bringing you a deck profile of something that I didn't think I'd be playing, not gonna lie. This is an in-depth Domain Monarch deck profile. Now, before I begin, I'm going to say a few things. Shout out to my homeboy Citrus, because he gave me a bunch of the cards for this deck. I had most of them already, but he helped me max rarity it just slightly, because, you know, it's one of my favorite decks of all time. And it's in-depth. I haven't done one of these in a while. The last one I did was when everything was at 3. Now that the deck is basically garbage. This is a $50 bulk deck. Oh, and that's another thing. This is a budget deck, too. If I had to guess, if I had to price everything in on TCG Player, the only expensive card that I have is in my side deck. And, like, that's easily replaceable. So, like, you could probably build this whole deck for $50 tops. Because it's really just 3 copies of the Monarch structure deck, a few extra like staple cards, and you're done. Because you don't need an extra deck. That eliminates $100 right there. Because most extra decks in this format are around $100. So let's run through the main deck and the side deck. And then in my second video that I'll do later today, I will do my side decking guide for most of your prevalent matchups that you'll be playing in the format. Going first and going second. Just because, you know, there are people out there who like to play this deck, and who knows, I might play it at my next regional. It all depends on what gets hit on this ban list. And this is basically my build for post-ban list too. Like, maybe if this little fucker gets banned, I'll replace it, but like, I highly doubt this deck is going to get touched in any way, shape, or form, so, because it's already been neutered to oblivion. So let's run through the deck list. Start off with one Aether. She's the best card in the deck. When you street summon, you get to send 2 from deck to grave, 2 Monarch Speller Traps, and then you get to summon a Monarch from your deck. And you can tribute summon her during your opponent's turn by banishing a Monarch Speller Trap that's in the graveyard. So this in Stormforth is a really, like, that's what made this deck so dirty. Well, if you would just use your Pantheism, you would field 3 Stormforth, you put Stormforth in your hand, and now you have the ability to Aether Stormforth on your opponent's turn, and that was the dirtiest thing you could do. So, and that play still exists to this day, although it's not as prevalent. 3 Erebus. He's the new boss monster. When he's tribute summoned, you send 2 from the deck to the graveyard. You can spin a card, so it returns a card from your opponent's hand, field, or graveyard back into the deck. And the really important thing about this card is that it doesn't target. So once the ability starts to resolve, they have no opportunity to respond, and that's super important, because if they go to like search, or if they go to pop a card, or if they go to like disrupt you, then you know what Erebus is going to spin, because even if he gets popped via a Trident or maybe a Ghost Ogre, his effect is still going to activate, so it means that you can now change what you're going to select. So maybe they use their Trident and they pop your Erebus. Well, it's like, okay, you don't need to spin the Trident anymore because it's wasted its effect and it's out of material. So you can get a card out of their hand. Or if they search and that's the only card they have in their hand, they can go back to the deck. And it has a graveyard effect to where during either player's main phase, you can pitch a Monarch Speller Trap in your hand and get a Monarch out of your graveyard. So you can get this back too, which is really broken. And these have the ability that they can be tribute summoned by tribute summoning a tribute summon monster. That's a lot of tributes, whatever, you get the point. Thessalos, it has the same thing, tributing a tribute monster. But you get to look at your opponent's hand and take cards out of it, and if it's a monster, they take damage equal to its level times 200. So, and if you tribute a fire monster, they take an extra 1,000. So, I mean, that's not super important, but it used to be your element because of red layer. But he's here game 1 for the Draco matchup, because Draco is by far your hardest matchup, and it's easily your worst matchup. So being able to get rid of the card in their hand, especially the masterpiece that's going to rape you, is pretty important. And then 3 Karaz. When he's normal or special, he gets to pop up to 2 cards on the field. Then the controller draws 1 for each one pop by this effect. And he cannot attack the turn he's normal or special summon. So he's here for summoning off of Aether, because you'll summon Aether, you'll summon the Karaz. You usually do this during your opponent's turn. Karaz can either blow up cards on your opponent's field to stop them from disrupting you, or you pop your own cards and you can go plus. So Karaz is one of the most important cards in the deck. I've seen people actively not playing this card, and you're doing it wrong. You're just being an idiot if you're not playing 3 copies of Karaz. He's like one of the best Monarchs now. If this bitch was at 3, then you wouldn't be playing Karaz as many copies. You'd probably be playing 1 Karaz, because like he sucks to draw. But like if you open it and return, it's a lot of value. So you need all the card advantage you can get, and that's basically what this deck is. This is basically a card advantage deck that has floodgate opportunities. So 3 Vanity's Fiend. Basically, just neither player can special summon monsters, and this can't be special summoned. So this is one of your win conditions. You summon it, you protect it, and your opponent loses. And like sometimes you'll even just summon it on turn 1 and be like, do you have the out? And if they have the out, they win, and if they don't have the out, they lose. So yeah, Vanity Screen. So I'm playing 11 Monarchs, or 11 monsters that need to be tribute summoned. Now I'll move on to your tribute fodder. 3 Edia. When she's normal or special, she gets a Squire out of the deck, or 800, 1000. A monster with 800 attack and 1000 defense. And then if she hits the graveyard, you can target one of your banished Monarch spell or traps and add it back to your hand. So she's the best Squire. If you just like summon her and you get hit by Ash, your turn's over basically, unless you have like spells to continue the combo or to continue your combos. But really, this deck is you have to be very critical on when you use your abilities. You have to play around hand traps, you have to play around back row, you have to play around the cards your opponent has on board. It's really annoying and it's a pain in the ass, but you have to. Because that's just how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. Like, if you lose the die roll and you can't set up Domain Lock, then you basically just have to play around what your opponent has. And sometimes you can do it and sometimes you can't. So, 3 Eidos. When he's summoned, you get an additional normal summon, but it has to be a tribute summon. And then if it's in the graveyard, you banish it, and you summon a 800, 1000 from the deck. So basically, Eidos banishes summon Edia, Edia summons Eidos, and then you have 2 tribute summons for the turn. So as long as you have 1 of each in grave, you can get all the extra copies in the deck, as long as you don't draw them. So they're important. And then the last tribute fodder is 3 copies of Gofu. I'm not going to go over what Gofu does. You all probably know what Gofu does. But basically, if you open Gofu, Carouse, and return, you don't go plus, but you thin your deck by 3 cards, and you have a play for turn 2. I've just been testing this card out, because originally what I was playing, and a card you can play if you don't want to spend money on Gofu, you can actually just play 3 copies of Link Slayer, which is what I'm going to do if Gofu gets hit on the ban list. But Gofu, because this deck is basically card advantage, whoops, where is he? There he is. Because this deck is entirely based on card advantage, Gofu is the best card in the deck, because it just generates a lot of advantage. And by the way, if you don't have Carouse in your hand, never summon the tokens. Ever. Because then your Zoo opponent's going to make Thoroughblade, and it's going to get Piercing, and you're going to lose. But yeah, if you don't have Gofus or don't want to buy Gofus, just play Link Slayer. Play a level 5 that can special summon itself from your hand if you control no monsters. Link Slayer, in my opinion, is the best because it also has the ability to remove back row. But you could play Red Layer, Kaiser Vorse Raider, whatever you want. So that's going to do it for the main deck monsters. I play 20 monsters. So moving on to the spells. 3 Domain of the Shrew Monarchs. This is your win condition. While you control a tribute summon monster, and your opponent doesn't, and you have no extra deck, your opponent can't summon monsters from the extra deck. Zoo can't do anything. Decks like ABC can't do anything. Any extra deck reliant deck, so Pendulum decks, for example, can't do anything. This card is insane. And it has 2 other effects. You can reveal a monster with 2800 attack and 1000 defense in your hand during your main phase, and it lowers its level by 2, so it makes it easier to tribute summon. And then if a tribute summon monster battles during your turn during the damage step, it gains 800 attack. So it turns all your monsters into 3600 beaters, which is insane. But that's only when they battle monsters, so that's kind of annoying. And then 3 Tenacity. You reveal a Monarch from your hand to search a Monarch spell or trap except itself, and it's once per turn. So basically, you just get the missing piece in your hand. If you don't have any tribute fodder, you either go get Domain or Stoneforth to make your monsters easier to summon. If you need to draw cards, you go get Pantheism or Return, depending on what you have in your hand. If you just need the win condition, go get Domain. Or if you already have setup and you just want to protect your board, go get March. It has so much versatility within the deck, and you need to be playing 3 copies. And then 3 copies of Return of the Monarchs. This card is it's weird. Basically, when you tribute summon, you get to search a Monarch with 2400 and 1000 or 2800 1000. So it basically means that all of the 8 tribute summon monsters in the deck are searchable through Return. So, and there is a neat little thing with Carouse where you can summon it. Its effect's going to activate and Return is going to activate. So you make Return Chainlink 2, meaning you get to search before Carouse destroys, and usually Carouse is going to pop Return, because off of Return you're going to get Aether. So it means that Karaz is on the field, you have a return in the graveyard, and now you can summon Aether during your opponent's turn. But it's just you can go get anything. And I'm playing Monarchs in the side deck that this can also search. So this can go get extra utility side deck cards if you need them. Pantheism, not going to talk about it. Stormforth, not going to talk about it. March, it's just basically your tribute summon guys can't die. They can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects, so. And you can't go into your extra deck. Whoop-de-fucking-do, Batman. Like, card's stupid. You basically search this when you already have the domain lockup, and your opponent just, all their outs like Darkhole, Regeki, Kaiju Slumber, maybe Drident, all those outs are gone. So. And then Frostblast. I love this card. I know some Monarch players don't, but I really like the card. I really think you should be main decking it. Basically, while you control a Monarch, you can pop a set card, and then any set card. It can be a monster too. And then if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it and a Monarch spell or trap to pop another set card. This isn't once per turn, and the graveyard effect you don't need a Monarch on the field. So this card can literally just against your True Draco opponent, as long as you go first and you can get this set up, you can easily pop 3 or 4 of their back row during your next turn. So that is super important. And then for the consistency, Upstart, Foolish Burial, Rhoda, 1-for-1. Rhoda and 1-for-1 are extra copies of Edia, so you're essentially playing 11 Tribute Fodder and 11 Monarch. So you're equally likely to get a combination of both in your opening hand. Upstart means you're playing a 39-card deck, and Foolish Burial actually can unbrick your hand, because you can send Erebus from the deck to the graveyard. And remember, Erebus has that graveyard effect, where he can add a Monarch back to your hand. So, like, say you open, like, Foolish Burial and Pantheism, you can send Foolish Burial, send Erebus, as long as they don't have Ash Blossom. And then Erebus, pitch Pantheism, get this back in your hand. Banish Pantheism from grave, reveal 3 Tenacity, and then you can start doing your combos. So Foolish Burial is a super important combo piece. That's it for the spells, and the only trap is 3 Prime. If you activate it while it's a spell or trap, you can shuffle once per turn. You can shuffle 2 Monarch spell or traps in your grave back into the deck to draw a card. And then if it's in the graveyard, you can banish a Monarch spell or trap to summon it as a level 5 light that has the opposite Monarch set. So it'll be 1,000 attack, 2,400 defense. So it's tribute fodder. I can't speak. I'm sorry, guys. It's like, I am feeling the crash right now. Essentially, if your opponent goes to kill you, they can't kill you. It's card advantage. It's tribute fodder. It can be a defensive play if you need it to be. Prime is great. So that is the 40-card main deck. There are other cards you could play, and I'll get to that once I'm done with the side deck. Or do I have them over here? I don't. They're all side deck. You can play the Link Slayers in the main deck. You can play Majesty's Fiend in the main deck. You can play extra copies of Thessalos if you want. These are the Gofu tokens. And then the side deck begins with 3 Zaphion the Time Lord. I've talked this card to death. This card is fucking insane. You summon it on an empty field. When it slams into something, or when it battles, your opponent shuffles all their spells and traps back into their deck during the end of the battle phase. And if it leaves the field, you draw a card. If it goes to the graveyard, you draw a card. That's fucking stupid. And you don't take any battle damage from battling, and it can't die by battle or card effects. This card is so good! And then during the standby phase, it goes back into your deck, but you don't care about that. This is basically your True Draco out. Like, you summon this against Draco, and if they don't have the Chalice or Strike, then their entire field is getting nuked. And they have to spend all their resources resetting up their field, which gives you time to establish a bigger monster than the Draco deck, because you can go bigger than the Draco deck. And plus, the matchup is still really bad for you, but it's much better, especially in games 2 and 3, when you have access to Zaphion. Like, that matchup, just really quickly, that matchup is all about card advantage. That's literally it. Just get a monster on board, maintain card advantage, and don't let them kill your stuff. 2 copies of Ghost Ogre in the side. This is the most expensive card in the deck. But it's part of the going second side deck plan, which I'll talk about later. But basically, just being able to blow up a zoo card or a diagram, or just being able to disrupt your opponent during their turn is really good. So, and then the Maxi, because this card's broken. If you open it, you win. And then moving on to your specialty Monarchs, Majesty's Fiend. for dinosaur decks, just because it can't be special summoned and monster effects cannot be activated. And what's important about Majesty's Fiend is it's 2400 attack and 1000 defense, meaning that you can reveal it with tenacity or search it with return, and that's stupid. So, and then I play Caius. He's just here for going second against the True Draco deck, meaning because it basically just banishes stuff. So if you're going second against the Draco deck, you get to, if you tribute a Dark Monster, which Eidos is, then, and that's usually what you use to tribute it, then you get to banish 2 of their cards. So that's super important. Is it monster cards? No, any card. So yeah, you can target back row. And then Zaborg the Mega Monarch is just to rape their extra deck. It's basically for Zodiac and just any deck that's relying on the extra deck. And like the FTK Infinity deck and the Dino FTK deck, like these cards just beat them. So 2 Dark Hole for going second. 2 copies of Soul Exchange for going second. These should be enemy controllers. I just don't have any. So replace these with enemy controllers. It's just better, just because it's a quick play spell. It has more versatility. But this isn't bad. It's definitely not a bad card. 2 copies of Twin Twister because you need to blow up back row, especially if you're going second to hit anti-spell fragrances and all the other floodgates your opponent's siding in to beat you. And this is something Citrus recommended, and even though I hate this card, I think you kind of have to play it right now. It's Escalation of the Monarchs. You get to tribute summon during your opponent's turn, so basically these cards, you side them in when you side this in. But like if you're siding these in, you probably should just bring this in as well, because like during your opponent's turn, if you summon Majesty's Fiend, you can stop their combo. Or if you summon Caius, you get to break up their board. Or if you summon Zaborg, you get to hit their extra deck. I only like it when I'm going first, but it's also good for the Draco matchup, because basically the Draco matchup is part card advantage and part disruption, because the Draco deck can play on your turn. So being able to play on the Draco player's turn is really important. So there is that. Anyway, that was the... I blanked, I'm sorry. This was the in-depth Domain Monarch deck profile. It wasn't as long as my first one because there's much to talk about. I've pretty much beaten this deck to death. But I will have the deck list in the description down below if you don't want to watch this video, which is perfectly fine. Whatever, I get it. A link to my Twitter will be in the description down below, so go follow me on Twitter. Do that. And that's about it. Leave your thoughts of the deck in the description down below, and I know Citrus is going to be in troll in the comment section. I already know it, so. But later today, expect the side deck tutorial, and that's about it. It's Nick from Team Table 501. Thanks for watching, and get good, plebs. I'll see you next time.